that's also like establishing avenues for food waste to be redirected could kind of help make sure that the food is like feeding people who deserve it. I don't know if that's like the right word, but yeah, that was more of just a comment I also wanted to extend.
Yeah, that raises the issue, to whom belongs the waste?
Mm-hmm.
So if you throw something away, can you still call it yours? Is it free for others to pick up? Or is it perhaps a commons? Because it's also resources and it belongs to us all? Or
yeah,
there are practical and ethical issues here. Is there anyone who urgently wants to make a final? I really would like to continue, but Sander has been waiting for half an hour, and Cristhian has been waiting for half an hour to start their presentation. So we should also move on.
Yeah.
But if...
Well, thank you very much. I'm really sorry about this technical issue. I lost my Wi-Fi connection here, and now I'm using my cell phone data for the connection. I don't know what happened. Probably in the Netherlands also we can have this problem with Wi-Fi. I think it's like very common in Brazil, but here we can have this one.
In the train, it became common now. We are suffering from the inflation.
Yeah, but well, the next activity for this colloquium, the last activity, but not the least activity, I invite to Sander. Sander, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello. Well, I start my PhD research here about wastewater, urban water, and how we can see in all this discussion, we are talking about always, when we talk about a circular economy, we are talking about solid waste, yeah? And I try to think, and Sanders helped me in that way, to think the economy, circular economy, but in other levels, yeah. And he is one of the, well, Sander have a company, his own company. The name is Circulogic, and he's tried to create and implemented here with the municipalities the idea about recycling or reusing the wastewater, yeah. And I invite him to explain for us how is exactly, when we talk about wastewater, what type of waste we are talking about. And it is possible to think the logic of circular economy also in this level of production. And yeah, Sanders, I don't know if you have your presentation there for the...
I have my presentation ready, but I think it's an addition to what you just said. I think wastewater is one of the things in a municipality where we can... Why? Shut up. My telephone rings. Is one of the things where we could actually do something more circular than we already know. And it's some kind of a niche market in our municipalities in the Netherlands. Everybody does something with wastewater, but they do not realize what kind of influence they have with their wastewater on the entire project. So I used the wastewater as a leverage to get in the brains of all the municipality stakeholders and try to change the way you have to think about a project. So in some way, yeah, my presentation is a little bit about how can you be circular and start, for instance, with wastewater. So shall I kick off?
Yeah.
Okay, I share my presentation. You see the screen? Yeah. So I want to go circular. Everybody wants to go circular, but they don't know where to start. It's abstract, it takes time, it's complicated, and we have more important things to do than thinking about your project, Sander. Just go away and leave me do my own thing. Yeah, but I've got a wheel. We're busy, go away. So it has to become more simple. So I tried to work to a point where nobody can ignore it, and that it helps people think to another level. And I hope to skip to another dia frame. Oh yeah, here we go. So my name is Sander. I'm actually a civil servant, 100%, so to speak, but my heart of circularity is that big that I have my own company on the side, so to speak. I'm moonlighting. And with that, I try to influence other municipalities, other companies to be more circular. So I'm very into the graphics. I'm a draw, and I think in pictures. Lina is also thinking in pictures, so that's very good. There are good people in circularity. And I'm a change manager, and I work in the city engineers in the municipality of Enschede, and it's in the east of the Netherlands, near the German border. And I work with with concrete, with tarmac asphalt. I work with green leaves, with trees. I make everything you can, or my people make everything you can see on the outside of the Netherlands. And if you know that the municipalities in the Netherlands, they buy for 45 billions in euros every year on material. And if we don't change our habits in buying other stuff, then nothing will change. We spend our taxpayers' money on things that are not circular. So how can we change that point of view? So I've figured that out. The classic view of maintenance manager is you're at the back of the project chain. All decisions they already have been made for you. You cannot change everything. That's also the problem with the water management people. They are the back end, they maintain the technical, they're not political. They have to make sure that everything is in place, it's not broken, and they have to fix things. They're people with big, great hands. They are very helpful, and they can fix everything that's broken. But there's one problem: the maintenance manager doesn't like changes. They do everything on their own way. And there are a lot of barriers, but there are a lot of chances. So I put several barriers that I found out with some chances to fill that out. So there is some kind of paralysis due to the uncertainty. Okay, circularity, ooh, it's terrifying. I don't think it's something for me. I just postpone it. So dare to experiment. Come on, push it. You get carried away by complexity and priorities. It's pretty complex circular thinking. So it's pretty sure that you have to put it in an early stage, and you put it on the agenda so everybody can think about it. There's no policy. Yeah, there's no policy. Why should I do that? If there's a policy, I'm obliged to do that. So no policy, go away. But if there's no policy, that's a chance. Set your own goals. You're in charge. It's your project. If there is no policy, then you can make your own policies. It gives you freedom. Don't think in captivity. Just go out and make your own. Set your goals. That's in the other presentations also. Collect your food. Distribute your food. And innovation requires communication between the market and the government. And some things carry is that you have to communicate with other parties. Then you can be, I don't know. But start a market dialogue. 6th of July, I have my own market dialogue about all these contractors, civil engineer contractors. And we talk about how we can innovate our business. Are we doing as a municipality the right things? Can we spend our money more efficient than we now do? Yeah, I'm a cash machine. The government is a cash machine. I have to put the money in the market, and the money will evolve and make sure that it's more circular and more green, sustainability. There is no room in innovation for innovation in contracts. Yeah, that's true, because everybody is thinking on their own deserted island and walking around in their own habitat. But take your small steps, scale up when you have success, and don't make it too big. If you take your project of collecting food for whole Amsterdam, then the whole thing will fall apart. It's too big. You have to scale up. And this is all you just, yeah. By success, then you can go to the next step. So no nuts, no glory, I say. No nuts, innovation is a risk. We have to be inventive, go for it. You have to have some guts. And as a government, it's very important that you know you're the launching customer. We have the budget, we have to spend our money. And I'm in a very strange position as a municipality guy working with a municipality. I get kicked in the ass if I spend too much money, and I get kicked in the ass if I don't spend too much money. I have to stay within the budget. If I put the budget exactly in the market, nobody gives me a tap on the shoulder. No way. That's your job. So you're always in a difficult position, but it's fun. That's fun. I like. So who wants to change? Everybody. Yeah, who wants to change? Nobody. So it's a difficult one. But we're not in a position to choose. We have a lot of issues. We are living in a complex system. We have biodiversity problems with the social economies. We have to redevelop our gas supplies. All departments where we work with, they do what they do, the best they can do, but they do not solve or complicated constructions. Everything is now piled up. The Ukraine, gas, now you name it, everything is things, it's coming at once, why? And you have to think about it, there is no climate department in the municipality, and there is no circularity department. So it's up to you. Everybody has to do their own thing and their own bit. So it's a dragon, you have to slay the dragon, you cut off one head and there will be another one. So you have to make sure everything compiles together and works together. There's energy transition, circular economy, and climate adaptation. The circular economy, if you see all these, if you Google, these are Google pictures I just found, and everybody explains in another way what the circular economy is. And it's not helping if you take a look at all these kind of frameworks or how it works. But everything is a circle. So I found a picture, it's a square. I like a square because if you have a square, you can pile it up. And in a square, you can see from recover to refuse that you can use on a different scale in circularity. It's almost impossible to make a step from recycle to rethink or reduce. It's almost impossible. So you have to be careful with that. It's the same with the TRL levels, in innovation levels. Then you have to think about it. And every project, there must be something that you can do from recycle to repropose or remanufacture or refurbish. So make sure that in a project that you have on hand, that you make your steps. Don't go too big. But if you know what circularity is and what you want, then you have to phase the project. Every project is split up in phases. We've got asset management, and I make the picture in project-based work. Every project has her steps, 1 to 6 steps. And you have to know how you can combine that. If you have asset management, there are people, great people in our place, think about how to maintain and how we find the money to obtain the public areas in a level of quality. And if it's not the quality that we want, then we got a project, and then we go in a project-based structure, and then we fix a project. We make we make a roundabout from just a crossing, from a crossing to a roundabout. It's a project. And we only do that if there are casualties or there's dangerous or the asphalt is at the end of its life. And then we have got a project, and after that project, it's back into the asset management, and then we find out what we can do. But where's the biggest effect if you want from these phases, if you want to be circular? The big effect is in the first part of the process. So you have to think about asset management in municipalities that especially a strategic asset management plan, of an asset management plan where you are making the assets, the bridges or the roads, what you're going to do. And then you have the plan for several years on how you can redevelop the asphalt to maintain it in a good quality. Everything is possible in that phase. If you want to go circular and you talk about that and you put it on the agenda, then it's possible to collect that ambition to the rest of the project and even into the project phases. But nowadays we are only pushing and inventing at the end stage in stage 4, 5, or 6. And then every money is already allocated. Then there's no budget to go to a circular project or another circular phase. So it's pretty difficult. So the new circular approach, making circularity part of the existing processes. You're in charge. Circularity is more than just recycling. Everybody, I talk about circularity, oh, I'm recycling, that's not circular. Yeah, okay, it's a little bit circular. You have to take it in steps. The time of pilot is over, it's ending. Please stop piloting. Make it a proof of concept. If this concept is working, then we can scale it up. If you tell it's a pilot, then okay, it's a pilot. Okay, you agree. Then we can evaluate afterwards. Does anybody evaluate ever a project? Nobody does that. So it's back to business, doing as usual. And one thing you have to know is the complexity is only increasing. Yeah, sorry about it. It's not, we're not making it easy. The world is not getting easier. It's complex. And if you like that, join the team. So I made a schedule. This is the phases and the projects. These are the steps in project management, so to speak. These are the things you have to deliver in phases. And these are the stakeholders in every project. So you can say, hey, these are the stakeholders. I'm an asset management. I'm a calculator. I'm a contractor and a contract manager. And within that, we have to figure out how we maintain this project and how we bring this project to a good end. And every step has their own influence. Then you can see if you are a designer, and the designer is here, is making a project, the designers are here. So your design is at the end. So if you know already in the beginning what you want to do with the circularity within the project that you are giving, then the designer knows, okay, it's coming at me. I have to think about it. I want to put it in perspective. I want to make a nice design that is circular. I want to reuse materials that are already available in this project. And how can I do that? That's asking a lot of thinking about people. So there's also a thing of contract choices. How do you tender the project? If you have the same phases and you're already in stage 4, then you have no room for other contracts. And you see here in the white is the responsibility as how do you call it? Opdrachtgever, the guy who gives the contract, me. Yeah, and this is the obligation of the contractor, the blue one. So if you see in the project, it's changes, and you have to figure out in time what kind of contract you want, and that gives you the room to collaborate. And nowadays, bouwteams are it's very hot. It's trendy. We want bouwteams, so we want to collaborate with our contractors. It's a nice thing, but it's difficult. But nice, everything is changing. We new contracts and we want to be circular. But how can you measure impact? It's very important that you also know what the effects are from your collaboration or your new inventions of innovations. But how do you do that? It has to be measurable. Start collecting data. With data, you get a start point. If you do not have a start point, then you do not know if you're moving forward or backwards. How many rubbish do you collect? How many mashed potatoes are you collecting in Amsterdam? And how big is that market? Nobody knows what the 0 point is. Everybody in the Netherlands say we have to be circular in 2050 for 100%. Okay, if you know what it's 100%, that's nice. But what is the 0 point? Yeah, that's the Paris. Paris is about CO2 emissions. That's not about circularity. So how do you measure circularity? Oh, I don't know. So it's important that you know how to do that. So collecting data. I'm very fond of these kind of graphics. As I said, I'm all very graphic. It gives you an insight of the amount of material that is where you have influence on. This is from the city of Apeldoorn, and the gray one is the households, and the yellow ones are the companies that are involved. So there is a company that collects our prunings or waste management.
Waste.
Yeah, garbage, and it's brought to Attero. It's one of the biggest in the Netherlands, maybe even in Europe, to do something with that. And there is another Bruins and Kwast. It's situated in another place, and this is our own company where we have to maintain our public space. And then you can see the grass clippings, the leaf litter. We have to collect all leaf litter, but we even have our Japanese nutweed. It's terrible, this stuff. But what can you do with if you know you have that kind of amount of Japanese nutweed, you can do something with that. You can make a project out of that. And now you've got your 0 point. Now from that 0 point, you can say, hey, last year we collected 1.09 kilograms, 8 tons of Japanese nutweed, and we made something out of it. And we need more Japanese nutweed. So you can collect that. So it's very interesting how by collecting data, you can see things move. KPIs are very important. So, so to speak, process to consider is that a point of the horizon helps, but accept that you can make zigzag to that point. The point in the horizon gives you an opportunity to, it gives you room. Just focus on the process, make it measurable. Don't focus on measuring. Only measuring, it gets the sparkle out of the cola, so to speak. It has to be, you have to give it a sparkle. Focus on the process and not on the measurement. So summarized, dare to experiment, guys. Have faith. We have a lot of experiments in Amsterdam. We've seen what's possible, but that's small. If you have to scale it up. So you have to think about how it can get bigger. Some municipalities have the money, the power, and the influence to do so. Put circular economy earlier on the agenda in a project. It gives room to think, not hasty or back in the wall position. Set your own goals. Dare to set your own goals. Start with a market dialogue. It's very funny. It gives you an opportunity to find out level-based in an equal-based community. Now choose the best contract form, as I just mentioned, and start small and scale up when successful. And the government is a launching customer. We have the budget, we've got the money, and we've got the power. So let's go. So this is my presentation for now. So any questions? Oh, you're still awake. Fine.
Do we have a moderator, or I'm still the moderator? And Cristhian, will you present as well? I don't know the program here.
I just want to thank you, Sanders. Very interesting your representation. It's nice to be how this circular economy discussion it were inside the municipalities, and one of my big goals in my research is how the social organization made it work, like how the people like you with your own company can introduce a project for the municipalities and can make it true, like it's very, very interesting, and I very thank you for your presence here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So you see, I'm my objective is from the inside, and the other presentation of gardening and collecting is outside. There are the people.
Yeah.
So somewhere we have to find attachment. We have to find how can we work together, and I don't know how yet.
You
but
have
I
a
found
question,
it.
Barbara?
I have a question now. I was raising my hand. I saw that drawing you showed from Apeldoorn,
Yeah.
and I was curious why they chose. It's a specific question, but it's about organic compost. And I've been participating in a lot of those organic compost, following how the decision making is being, how is happening. And the bokashi, for the ones who don't know, is a Japanese technique, and it's a composter. But worms, it's also very popular in the Netherlands with the worm hotels, also in a bigger level. It's becoming, I think it's scaling up slowly. But the bokashi is not really circular. It's ending the process in a way that with the worms for the composting of leaves, it's more circular. So I was gonna, it's a very specific, detailed question, but why bokashi for the GFT? That is green fruit and garden left.
It's not so difficult. Bokashi is just, I think, 2 months in a plastic tube.
Yeah.
And if you want to have the worms, it's a whole season. We don't have the space to store all these kind of materials. We've got a lot of volume, and we have to, the alternative is to compost it. And composting is even faster than that. They're all mechanical robot composting machineries. It's a large scale. So it is an alternative. And the only thing we want to accomplish with the bokashi is that we feel the urge that it is our material. So it's very important that our colleagues know this leaf litter, what we are reusing in our own public areas. So how can we do that? And bokashi is one of the things that we can do.
Yeah, thank you.
Break.
Yeah, thank you. It was very interesting. First, you said start a market dialogue.
Yeah.
The more I study examples of sustainable behavior or efforts to make processes sustainable, the more I'm convinced that whether we like it or not, in a capitalist world, we are people who talk about sustainability. They try to fight the market. But you're not going to win that fight. So you must use the market somehow. And then if the things that we are doing are economically beneficial, then very quickly it will go by itself.
That's why
and it also applies, I think, to the things you are talking about.
Close the circle and try to make a closed business model. And if you want to close a business model, you have to talk to the market parties. Otherwise, you don't know if you have even closed it, and you're living on your own dream, and then nobody wants to copy it.
Exactly, and exactly. And the other thing is, you began by saying, well, suppose there is no policy. And one thing I've learned from studying development policies in the global south, anthropological perspectives on development policies. So then you have the assumption, oh, somebody is designing a policy, say the World Bank or Oxfam or another development organization. And then they look at how are these policies implemented. And then people are disappointed. They say, well, they're not implemented in the right way. Now, a new insight, which is now very common among anthropologists, is that the idea that you begin with a policy and then you have to look at the right implementation. This is simply not how it works. So you have all sorts of actors having different practices, and at some point, that's beneficial to all of us if we afterwards, after the practice has already been established, we kind of invent a policy that is useful to sell our ideas to the outside world. So that only confirms that if there's no policy, that's nothing to worry about. On the contrary, it creates space, exactly as you were saying. It creates space.
You have to be courage.
And then the policies will come later.
You have to be courage. If you don't have the courage to step forward to do something, then it's very difficult. And if you are a municipality worker, you work there, then it's very, it's very easy to say it's not on my my ends. Let somebody else do that. So as to speak, I'm not the standard civil servant, so to speak. If you have 10 guys like me in one municipality, that probably burns down. Yeah, you have to think about it, how you can make projects work. Yeah, Carmen, I see your hands raising.
Yes, thank you, Sander, for a fantastic presentation. You have to give us a workshop how to build a PowerPoint like that, because we anthropologists are not that good. My question would be, as a service of a municipality, well, you have European regulations, but every country seems in a different point on this circular economy and recycling, etc. How do you compare Netherlands with other countries in Europe? I also had questions for Lena and Barbara, but I think we can do it later in some point.
I didn't get the last question, if it was a question, because my
question is, could you talk about other countries in Europe? Yes. You are all under the same regulation from the European Commission. But the implementation of circular economy are very different.
Exactly. So, yeah, there's something we have to cope with. It's not something we. There are Europe regulations, but even the regulations from Europe to the other countries, they are different. And in Portugal, there are very other structures of collecting waste than in the Netherlands. So we are far ahead, so to speak, than in Portugal. But that's no worry, as long as Portugal is still moving forward, and we have to move forward. So it's not easy. You have to accept that it's go slow, but you have to get the pace in it.
More question, Frank?
Yeah, so you're a civil servant, you have repeatedly said so, no special one. Who do you think within the municipality, so you also speak about business partners, others have to be involved, but within the municipality, should they lead? Is that leave it to servants or to politicians? I'm asking because I've done together with a research assistant, done research on waste management in Hengelo, not far from you. And there's an ongoing discussion between citizens, civil servants, and the municipal council. It's an ongoing struggle. And in your view, who should take the lead and who has the power to push things through?
The power is always by the politicians, because they have
on paper.
On paper, yeah,
in theory, but in reality.
Yeah, but they also have the money to make sure to give the money to do so. So it's very important that the politicians are on your agenda and in your role, but try to find where the energy is and try to ride the wave, so to speak. Sometimes it's the energy coming from our inhabitants, and sometimes it's from our companies, and sometimes we are the who is picking it up. And it's also the thing about if you have your own policies. If there are no policies, okay, very fine, but we need policies somehow, somewhere. So it's good there is a little bit of policy making starting, and then you can fill it up with your experience by doing so. So it's bottom up as also top down. So it's very important that you collaborate with it. And a lot of municipalities are still waiting with crossed arms. So from, okay, if there is no policy, I'm not doing anything. So that's not the way it works. Otherwise, you don't feel obligated to do so. And it's it's very important that you feel it in your heart and in your bones that this is what we all as an individual have to do. And yeah, and that's why I work with the municipality, because I think yeah, I can be from very good yeah, I can make the biggest impact. Yeah. So
okay, well, thank you again, Sander. I think we
Yeah,
end.
I have one question. No, Sander, no, because you are talking about policies, and I suppose that policy and inspection goes together in Netherlands. It's not the case in Brazil. We have policies, we have laws that protect Amazon, but we don't have inspection. So doesn't matter.
yeah, but you also mentioned earlier that there are several different companies that are collecting the waste without any contract and policy. They do it on their own. So there is energy, there is a enthusiastic, there are parties that want to do that. So I think you as a government, you have to be smart and try to make sure that these parties are collaborating or helping each other. So I think that's another role as a government. And if you want to regulate it, then you separate these enthusiastic parties again. And that's not the issue. I think you have to find your own way to deal with your garbage, because we are in Europe and we've got another, a whole other system that's not comparing with your way of life or collecting the garbage, or even how it gets there. So it's yeah, it's difficult.
Any final question?
Carmen had questions to Lina and Barbara. I'm eager to hear them.
Yeah,
very quickly. No, to Lina is, well, I like very much your presentation, but I was wondering, do you find the same programs of waste food in your country, United States? Because I remember to see many plugs or gardens like Barbara show us, but I do not know if there is programs like that. And for Barbara, I like the way you ended your presentation, quoting an indigenous philosopher, Karnak. And I would like to know more about the buen vivir that many Europeans are getting from this Indian cosmology. I think that's it's central for this question. And yeah.
For my question, I actually didn't really focus any of my research for my undergraduate degree in food systems. Excuse me. So I've never had any awareness of like a food redistribution type of program. And I grew up in Maryland and went to college in like the DC area. And I would imagine that would be the sort of place that these sorts of ideas would be generative. So I have never had any experience, but I'm eager to go back and see what sorts of initiatives I could potentially get involved with. I was looking sort of like, not since I'm finishing my degree, I've been looking at jobs kind of everywhere. And there's definitely programs that are focusing on like resilient, sustainable food systems and like that sort of idea, but food rescue itself, I have not heard of any programs, but I'm sure that they exist, and I'm sure they're similar to the nonprofit organizations, sort of like grassroots movements to redistribute food to communities. But yeah, I'm really eager to see kind of what Barbara was saying, like in the next couple of years, I think that those sorts of initiatives will be growing, and it'll be cool to see what happens.
Because people are in need for some buen vivir philosophy, at least here in Europe, in an area where we have abundance of resources because it is a colonial place that has been grabbing resources from the other countries. I mean, we have I don't know, it's since the navigation started, I don't want to make anybody feel guilty now. I'm also a resident in the Netherlands, but it is, I think it's turning this too, that people also in the pandemics, it helped to expose the feeling of insatisfaction that people have also, even being in a very rich society, that people felt so constrained, so restricted, so frustrated with the whole situation. Like, okay, now we cannot leave the country. We cannot leave our houses. We were contained during the pandemic. That's I think some indigenous philosophy come and felt good for people to have more access to this kind of okay, from how do we go on? And then indigenous people from many places in the world, they are saying, you know now how it feels to live in a world that had been destroyed. In many ways, I think this resonated in a lot of the magazines, the TV shows in the Netherlands, also in other countries like France or the UK, even more hard now because of the Brexit, that they felt also out of the European Union. And you see this growing interest on what other ideas are out there. So this idea of the buen vivir that comes from Bolivia, from Ecuador, countries that have written in their constitution the right of nature. Now New Zealand, Aotearoa, like they now like to name themselves based on an indigenous name. It's growing this idea like, let's protect the land against corporations, against indigenous, against grabbing from corporations. And this idea like, let's give the rights of nature a space. And then in the international court, they are also advocating for ecocide becoming a specific law. And that is based on indigenous constitution rights that was established in Bolivia and Ecuador. And it's becoming part of an international law. When ecocide finally maybe reaches the international court, we are going to have this inspiration from indigenous people becoming a law that is bringing corporations and governments maybe to be judged. Now, they are going to do that against just small little places, small little corporations, or they are going to hit, like they are also trying to do in the Netherlands against Shell, for example. So I think this is also happening, and we are going to see the big impact in the next 5 years. I would say that it's going to shorten the waiting time. So I think people like Ailton Krenak, they are being taught in the Dutch universities, and they are going to be spreading, I think, from here to other universities, and their utopias are not going to become just utopias. Now, to come back to the title of our event, Utopias of Recycling, it might sound very far, but I don't think we are that far anymore. So thank you. Pass the word back to our host, Cristhian, Caje.
Well, I'm really happy for this day. I think we got a very nice discussion here, and it almost 4 hours we are here. And I think, well, we need to end in the discussion now and back tomorrow. Yeah. Tomorrow have a program between the people from Argentina and Uruguay, and also a researcher from the Antarctica about the managers from the waste there. And we have the experience like Sanders have today, like the experience here in the Netherlands, but tomorrow we listen to Marcia and Carol from project implementation also in the Amazonias and Florianopolis in Brazil. And I think we can have a very nice days also tomorrow. And I hope all yours. back here tomorrow. And
What's going to be the link for tomorrow?
yeah, it is the same link.
Same what?
It is the same.
Yours or Frank?
No, because the link I send it, I can broadcast in YouTube. Okay. This part with the Frank link, I recording and I put it in the YouTube also, but later. Okay, but tomorrow we use the same link I sent in the email. Okay.
Because then we can broadcast live, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is, someone want to say something or no?
Yes, it was a great afternoon. Thank you all.
In the Netherlands, it's 7 to 6, so beer. That's like. And yeah, I hope to meet you all again tomorrow. I like the Extinction Rebellion as a background of Lena.
I was wondering if anyone would say this. My roommate works
I
for,
saw it there.
and we have this awesome, it's like the Rembrandt painting and they're all underwater. I love it.
Getting into the water.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So much.
They are
Yeah,
talking
this
to
has
you.
been so
Bye-bye.
fun. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for today.
Thanks, Christian. And the technical problems, it happens. It was good that we went quickly, teamwork. Frey created a Zoom, send a Zoom.